would start, you have to click the bumper again to make it go. I can't start it from here.
He says there's no sound.
See if it's, you had muted the computer, remember you said you had muted the computer, unmuted. Y'all just entertain yourselves. But we have to have it later too. Isn't that peachy? The 1 week I have a song in my sermon video. Sounds not working. Keep saying if you can figure it out, and let's just, so the video won't play. We'll go ahead and play it. Let's get it done. Sorry, it usually has music. Well, I remember the tune. It was catchy. Don't give up on it. See if you can find that, what's got it muted before we get to the second slide. I'll pray really long to start. Let's pray. Glorious Heavenly Father, I praise your name. I thank you, Father, for your blessings, for your hand in our lives, for your hand in this church. I ask you, Father, to help us to receive your words today. Help me to proclaim the message you'd have me proclaim. In Jesus' name, Lord. Amen. 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 Anybody handy at fixing things? You know, some people are. You know, my family thinks I'm handy at fixing things. They think I can fix anything that goes wrong around the house or on cars. And you know, mostly I can. But there's a whole big difference between being able to do something and actually doing it. A lot of times, things need to be done, and I just don't get around to it. Anybody else? Let me give you an example. There's 2 doors into our closet, so there's 3-way switches. Several months ago, the light started flickering when I hit one switch. So, like any good fix-it guy, I took a look to see what was going on, figured out what it was, decided it was one switch. So I just flipped that switch in the other position and tried to use the other door. Seemed like Donna didn't complain, so it seemed like the problem was solved. It was cool. Well, it was kind of cool. Because sometime, just a few weeks ago, Marion went through the closet and she commented, "Daddy, the lights are flickering." So, like any good father, I carefully explained to her how 3-way switches worked. I drew them a diagram, got them together, and showed them exactly how it would operate and how it would be wired, explained that thing to them, and then showed them which switch was not working. So, that begs the question. If I knew exactly what was wrong, I knew exactly how it worked, and all I had ever done was flip the switch and wonder if I had another 3-way switch out in the shop, so I wouldn't have to go to the hardware store. If I had perfect knowledge, why wasn't it fixed? I was in denial. I simply denied the problem existed. I said, I'm not going to face it. Well, gee, I hope this will work. I was, in fact, the king of denial. See if it'll play. Okay, it's not going to play. You remember Pam Tillis' song, The Queen of Denial? Anybody? This is a 1-minute video of her saying she's the queen of denial. I was the king of denial. So you're going to save a whole minute here on this. Well, in the okay, it took us clear out of it. In the rooms of recovery, they say nothing changes until something changes. Nothing changes until something changes. We can deny a problem until we're forced to face the problem. So what changed on that day that Marion saw that? I was forced to face the problem. See, I was modeling laziness to the girls. And I couldn't do that. So I didn't want to teach them lazy behavior. So I replaced that switch right then, lazily, because I didn't want to go to the breaker panel. So I replaced it in the dark hot. But I replaced it. Nothing changed until I changed what I was doing. And our hopes and prayers for this series, Dollars and Cents, is that all of us, is this mic really, really hot and echoing? Can we turn down the gain or the volume just a little bit? Can you still hear me?
Pastor Mike, I think he got it.
The video?
Never mind. Sorry.
Well, let's leave that ship behind. Well, that ship is gone. Let's go to, I can't control this now. Can you take me out of that to the next slide? Nothing changes until something changes, please. All locked up now? Well, use your imagination, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm hoping is that everybody here will have this realization that everybody who calls this church our spiritual home will get sick and tired of living in the here of financial chaos and decide it's time to move to and get this picture of God's financial blessing in there of being reasonable with our finances. That's the peace, that's your birthright. God offers that to you. Remember, Pastor George says this, Jesus came to not only rescue you from the hell you're headed to, but also the hell you are living in. And sadly, for most of us, statistics say about 72% of us, the hell we're living in is consumer debt. 72, that's about 3/4. So if I just start counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be somebody who's not in consumer debt. 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd get somebody else. Do you follow me? Statistically, most of us are burdened with consumer debt. And I think the problem is, when it comes to money and the stuff money buys, we're in denial. We just deny there's a problem. We just refuse to face it. We just ignore it. But the common sense wisdom that the Bible gives us, teaches us, we ignore it at our own peril. The Bible advocates common sense, good, biblical-based planning for what you have and what you do with what you have. About 3,000 years ago, a very wise man, King Solomon, wrote a proverb. Now, remember, at the time he wrote that, most of the people were farmers, shepherds. They lived in an agrarian society. So let's read Proverb 27, verse 23 through 27 together. Are you ready? Go. Know the state of your flocks, and put your heart into caring for your herds, for riches don't last forever, and the crown might not be passed on to the next generation. After the hay is harvested, and the new crop appears, and the mountain grasses are gathered in, your sheep will provide wool for clothing, and your goats will provide the price of a field, and you'll have enough goat's milk for yourself, your family, and your servant girls. Let's take this verse apart. We're concluding this 4-week series on dollars and cents. Let's take a look. I want to ask you in your study notes to first underline that, know the state of your flock. Just underline that phrase, know the state of your flocks. So what's that? Well, friends, if you're a shepherd, if you're a farmer or a rancher, it is imperative to know the condition of your flocks. Are they sick? Are they well? Is somebody stealing them? Are animals, in that time and place, are animals killing them? Do you have enough food? Is there graves? Is there water in the area to tide you through the future? Are the shepherds that work for you loyal? Are your hands paying attention? You need to know and correct present threats to your prosperity. Managing your flocks is important work. Now I want to ask you to do this. Circle this phrase, put your heart into caring for your herds. Put your hearts into caring for your herds. So if knowing the state of your flocks was important, that was about vigilant assessment. That was about an inventory of what your resources were. Then this is about the watchful care of those resources. You follow me? Take care of your herds means make sure they're well protected. Make sure they're healthy. Now I want you to notice the last part of that, the rest of it. For these riches don't last. Solomon here is reminding us that care and assessment of your herds is essential because the future is unknown. It's uncertain. It's unknowable. By the time you know it, it's the present. By the time you adjust to it, it's the past. We have to just be ready. If you're diligent in your current situation, you will have enough for whatever your future situation is. That's a big if. That's like the if that's in the middle of life. So, remember, it hadn't been that long since the Great Recession. The greatest recession we've had since the Great Depression was only, 12 years ago? 2007? We don't have a crystal ball. The future is uncertain for all of us. So what I ask you to do, let's just take this advice, this good advice, let's drag it 3,000 years into the future. If there are any shepherds here, I'm sorry. I'm going to take this and be about something else. Let's since we don't grow crops, we don't live on what to feed our families, most of us, let's talk about something we do live off of. Money. Let's talk about money. See, the common sense wisdom of the Bible, it says that knowledge of your money and the stuff money buys is essential to live in an uncertain future. So the tool that we want to talk about today to conclude this series, to overcome the barrier of indebtedness and to get us to the there of the best God has for us, is budgeting. Okay, it's not a four-letter word. Friends, this is not a dirty word. Budgeting is not bad. Calm down. Our friends at Financial Peace University have said this. The word budget has been known to make skin crawl, send shivers down spines, and even bring fully grown adults to tears. But it doesn't have to be that way. A budget is simply an estimate of income and expenses for a set time period with designated categories. So let's try to drill a little deeper into this. Understand, why is this a biblical topic? Why is this something that God taught us about? Let's ask this question. Why is budgeting important? So let's consider first the why of budgeting before we go to the how of it. Why is it important? Well, first, budgeting gives me a clear present, a picture of my present reality. A picture of my present. You have to know the state of your herds. You have to know what's going on. So, budgeting is simply a tool for me to know the state of my flocks right now. What do I have? And let's be honest. Friends, for most of us, when it comes to money and the things money buys, we're a lot like me in that $2 switch, $1.49 plus tax switch that I didn't put in. We simply decide we're going to ignore the problem. We're just going to plow through it, and so guess what hits us in the face eventually? The fact that the problem wasn't ignoring us, but we were ignoring it. We're in denial. We seem to think if we don't think about it, this problem's just going to go away. But it doesn't. You know, those silly little people in those great big financial buildings in New York City keep applying interest to our debts. And so pretty soon we have a big problem. Our unpaid bills get bigger and bigger. Well, it's amazing how well that works. Anybody ever been amazed by it? I sure have, more than once. And Solomon gave us some more good old-fashioned wisdom about budgeting. In Proverbs 21, verse 5. Let's read this together. Whoops, I forgot something. Beside that picture of present, write mine now in that blank. Would you please write mine now in that blank? Because that's your now. And then let's go and read together what Solomon said. Ready? Go. Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. I want to ask you to circle the phrase, good planning and hard work. Those two words. Circle good planning, hard work in your message notes. So budgeting is both about good planning and then hard work to help us carry it out to get a good picture of our current financial situation. So, if you were here in week 1 of this series, you heard me tell how our financial situation can move back and forth across the bridge from here in trouble to there in success. You think you're doing good, you just start spending some unwise things, and pretty soon you're right back in consumer debt. I've told you how I've been back and forth. Donna and I budget. Well, I budget. In our household, there is one person who has a degree, cum laude or summa cum laude in finance, who has a master's degree, also with honors, who was a branch chief in accounting, who was a certified government accountant. She does not budget. I do. Donna doesn't do it. I prepare a budget. We have a pretty detailed budget. It summarizes our quarterly. I use Excel. I have our quarterly, biannual, and annual reports printed out, planned against actual. Enter all that data. I get this nice sheet. I print it out. Last December, I printed ours out. I took a copy. I gave it to Donna. We both looked at it. We did not say a word to each other about it. We never discussed it. Budgets have to be talked about. It's not that pleasant, but we had to talk. We just didn't do it. I'm not saying she didn't do it. I'm saying we didn't do it. I didn't. Neither one of us did. We both looked at it. We kind of thought about it. But we never talked about it. Let me tell you what Rick Warren, the preacher, senior pastor at Saddleback, wrote Purpose-Driven Life and other things. He says this. He said, thoughts entangled in the mind, disentangled when they pass through the lips and the fingertips. That's true about budgeting, the same as it is about abuse, trauma, anything in the past. Budgeting helps us untangle these things. But when you can you imagine having a business, preparing your operating plan, your operating budget, getting it at the end of the year and never talking about it? We did. We did this last year, so we did. But that's the picture of our now, is when we look at that stuff. There's a second reason why budgeting is important. Budgeting gives me clear goals for my future possibility. I got goals for my future. I got a picture of my present, goals for my future. Please write my then in that blank. My then in your message notes. So budgeting not only helps me understand the state of my flocks now, it also allows for my herds now to be cared for, so my future then will be secured. Follow me? So I know that in my future, in my then, I can harvest. I can take care of what I need. Remember what Solomon said in Proverbs 27, verse 25 through 27, that we looked at earlier. He said, after the hay is harvested, and the new crop appears on the mountain grass, and the mountain grasses are gathered in, your sheep will provide wool for clothing, and your goats will provide the price of a field. You don't have enough goats for yourself, your family, and your servant girl. So that kind of harvest is the reward for budgeting and preparing. Your needs will be cared for yourself, for your family, and for others as well. You'll be ready. That kind of harvest is the reward for budgeting and preparing. And, I put it this way. Interest can work for you or against you. If you borrow somebody else's money, you take a charge card, you run up a balance, or you get a new consumer loan, then interest works against you. But if you save up that money, if you save some money, you invest it or put it in some sort of an account, then interest works for you. Hey, I keep forgetting this, so I'm just repeating it to you all. Man, here's this. I take their money, I pay them to use it. They take my money, they pay me to use it. It's like a who'd have thought? Over and over, I relearn this lesson. Anyone else? That's why Solomon gives us this wonderful, wise advice, again, about 3,000 years ago. This one's from Proverbs 21:20. I want to ask you to read this together because we don't pay much attention to this. Ready? Go. The wise have wealth and luxury. Whoops, didn't click. You're going to have to bump it over. It's stuck again. I don't know what's going on with that. Will it move or did it lock up? Ready? Go. The wise have wealth and luxury, but fools spend whatever they get. It is foolish not to plan for our then. The wise have wealth and luxury because they know how investments and interest can wisely work for them if they plan for it, instead of foolishly let it work against them. Friends, in life, stuff happens. If is that big thing in the middle of life, L-F-E. Tires get flat, or they wear out. Kids outgrow shoes. People get sick. Colleges and weddings get planned. Air conditioners break. You know what else I've noticed? Birthdays and Christmas seem to come around with astonishing regularity. And we can plan for those things. None of that stuff should surprise us. Even the expected unexpected as well as the unexpected unexpected. You know, there's known unknowns. Oh, I don't need to go into that. Oh, well. If we're wise, we plan for those things. We plan for the contingencies we don't know. We plan for the contingencies that we do generally know about. So why is budgeting important? It helps us set a clear picture of our now, and it helps us set goals for our then. A very, very simple, a very basic budget is simply what I told the kids. It's a 10-10-80 budget. It's just generally having this idea. It's very simple. Think of it this way. You give God 10%. 10% go to the Lord. Pay yourself 10%. And then you live on the other 80%. Now, there are Financial Peace University flyers in the narthex on the table. They've been throughout this series. Financial Peace University will teach you how to budget in great detail. If you pick up a flyer and contact the church, we'll talk about this. So the 10% we give to God is called our tithe. It's an expression that we understand, hey, it's God from whom these blessings flow. He enables us to be able. Giving it back to Him is as a symbol of our faith, and it's a clear demonstration of our trust in God. He's the one that owns it all anyway. The 10% you pay yourself, that's preparing for your future. That could be investments in a retirement account, or perhaps in liquid assets for your president. It could be simply as simple as set up weekly or monthly deposits to a mutual fund, Vanguard, or something like that, an index fund. It's how you do it, and you just adjust to live on the 80%. My dad used to tell me about some of the farmers around when he grew up that were pretty wealthy for the time. And you know how they said it? Half of what you make, you save, and you live on the other half. That was what Dad told me. That was absolutely undoing. I shook my head too. I can't do that. But here is how the Bureau of Labor Statistics breaks out what we actually spend as average Americans. We spend the big part of the soccer ball. We spend about a third of what we make on our home, on housing. We spend about 16% on transportation. 13% goes to food. Insurance and things are about 11%. Health care, about 8%. And then the rest, the next 10% is entertainment, other, cash contributions, clothing, and education. That's almost all of our after-tax income, friends. That's almost all. For an average family in America, that's way over 90% of what they spend goes to those things. But the study also tells us that large numbers of Americans spend more than they make. Look at this. According to that Bureau of Labor Statistics data, the average consumer in the bottom 60%, that's over half, of earners spends more than they earn. Similarly, the average consumer under the age 25 and the average consumer over 65 had expenditures greater than their income. So, don't just set aside this idea of budgeting, friends, no matter where you are in life. When I first resolved to invest and save many years ago, the reinforcing tool I used then, and I still use today, was conversations, imaginary conversations with my older self. Now, when I started out, my older self was younger than I am today. Now, he's not much older than me. And we talk about this. Along the way, though, I had discussions with older Donna, with older Marion, with older Rachel. What we talked about was, how are they? Remember the song, Dear Younger Me? This is Dear Older Me. This is Dear Older Me. So, imagine telling your older self that he or she does not have the money to pay expenses because you spent it today for something you wanted today. I would like to have a new mid-engine Corvette. Really would. Anyway, yeah. But there's many other things I would like to do. But I don't want to tell that older Mike that he can't do the things he has to do because I couldn't control my want to. It may not work for you. It may seem just crazy. Maybe it is crazy, but it's worked for me over and over again. We just talk. You know, we said the idea is I don't leave them in a bind because of my selfish, thoughtless actions now. Because that future image is part of my flock. Does anybody understand? Please just somebody raise a hand if you got it. Because you don't want to hear me do this again, do you? Please raise your hand. God is wonderful. Now, Jesus told us to care for our flocks. Here's what Jesus said. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees the wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. So the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. I am trying to be a good shepherd to my future. You must be a good shepherd to your future, or you will suffer because things are going to happen. It's going to happen. Jesus also said, the hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. When we spend the money today that we need for our tomorrow, we're running away with it. That's exactly what we're doing. But Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Just as my Father knows me and I know the Father, so I sacrifice for the sheep. Friends, as we close this series, let's pray now for the wisdom of God to help us to plan for an uncertain future, to wisely manage and seek to eliminate consumer debt and credit card balances, to avoid impulse purchases that will impact our future. Sometimes it's just 30 days away. Let's move from the here of financial mess to the there of financial bliss. We're doing these two. One more time, remind you, Financial Peace University material out there. We've got enough people who are interested to take part. We will plan a class. If we don't have one, they are all over. I can connect you with one. All right, let's pray. Oh Lord, I praise you. I thank you. Father, it is so hard to talk about finance for me. And I confess I hate to even talk about it. And I know I suspect it is for others. Lord, I ask you to help us each to soften our hearts and bow our heads and our necks and submit to this teaching. Lord, help us to get, sometimes it seems impossible to get from our here to your there. Please help us to begin this journey and continue on it. I ask you to pour wisdom in the hearts of everyone here for the glory of your kingdom. In Jesus' name I ask these things. Amen. 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 So our hymn of response today is, open my eyes that I may